For centuries, men have gone to war but only a few became legends. They didn't just win battles. They changed history itself, from kings who conquered continents to lone swordsmen who never lost a duel. This is the story of the greatest warriors the world has ever known. These are the top 10 greatest warriors in history. To Alexander the Great, the unstoppable conqueror. Born in the ancient kingdom of Macedonia, Alexander wasn't just another king. He was destiny in motion. Tutored by Aristotle, he learned philosophy, science, and the art of leadership before most could even read. At just 20 years old, he inherited his father's throne, and by 30, he had built the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. From Greece to Egypt and deep into India, Alexander never lost a single battle. His brilliant tactics at Gaugamela crushed the mighty Persian Empire. He led from the front, fighting beside his men, often bleeding with them. To this day, historians struggle to understand how one man could inspire such loyalty and fear. Alexander died young, but his legend never did. He became the symbol of what it means to be invincible. 2. Spartacus, the slave who defied Rome. He was never born a nobleman. Spartacus was a slave, a gladiator, forced to fight for entertainment in the arenas of Rome. But in the year 73 BC, he decided he would no longer fight for others. He would fight for freedom. With only a few dozen followers, he broke free from captivity and sparked the largest slave uprising in Roman history. Soon, over 120,000 men and women stood with him, armed not with polished swords, but with the fire of rebellion. For 2 years, Spartacus and his army defeated legion after legion of Rome's finest soldiers. He was not just fighting an empire, he was fighting destiny itself. Even when surrounded, Spartacus refused to surrender. He died as he lived, sword in hand, unbroken. 3. Leonidas the Fairer, the king who stood against an empire. Thermopylae, a narrow mountain pass in Greece, became the stage for one of history's most legendary last stands. When King Xerxes of Persia invaded Greece with hundreds of thousands of soldiers, King Leonidas of Sparta marched to meet him with just 300 men. To Leonidas, retreat was not an option. When told that Persian arrows would blot out the sun, he famously replied, "Then we shall fight in the shade." For 3 days, Leonidas and his Spartans fought against impossible odds. They held their ground, giving Greece precious time to prepare for war. Leonidas was eventually surrounded and killed, but his courage turned Thermopylae into a legend that still inspires warriors today. Genghis Khan, the storm from the steppe. He was born as Temujin in the harsh lands of Mongolia, betrayed, exiled and hunted, but out of this suffering rose a man who would forge the greatest land empire in history. Genghis Khan united the Mongol tribes under a single banner and unleashed them upon the world. His warriors were unmatched in speed, strategy, and discipline. From China to the Middle East, his armies crushed kingdoms and empires that had stood for centuries. He rewrote the rules of war, using intelligence networks, psychological warfare, and sheer speed to annihilate his enemies. To his followers, he was a god. To his enemies, he was the end of the world. 5. Richard the Lionheart, the Crusader King. The son of England's king, Henry II, Richard I, known as the Lionheart, earned his name not through royal blood, but through courage. During the Third Crusade, Richard faced the legendary Muslim leader Saladin. The two men were fierce opponents but shared a mutual respect born of honor. Richard's leadership and tactical genius allowed his vastly outnumbered forces to win victory after victory in the Holy Land. He personally led charges, fought on the front lines, and inspired his men through example. Though the crusade ended without capturing Jerusalem, Richard returned home as one of Europe's most respected warrior kings. Even his enemies admired him, and that's the mark of a true warrior. 6. Joan of Arc. The saint of the sword is here. France was burning under English rule when a teenage peasant girl claimed she was chosen by God. Her name was Joan of Arc. Armed not with armor or experience, but with faith and unshakable will, She convinced King Charles VII to let her lead his army. And then, the miracle happened. Joan led the French to victory at Orléans, turning the tide of the 100 Years' War. Her courage on the battlefield inspired thousands and terrified her enemies. But her fate was cruel. Captured and accused of heresy, Joan was burned alive at the age of 19. Yet even as the flames rose, she never screamed for mercy. She became not just a warrior, but a saint, a symbol of bravery beyond fear. Saladin, the noble warrior. While Europe hailed its crusader kings, the Islamic world had Saladin, a warrior known not only for victory but for mercy. Born in Tikrit, Iraq, Saladin united the Muslim world and faced the might of the Crusades head-on. At the Battle of Hattin, he crushed the Crusader armies and reclaimed Jerusalem, not through slaughter, but through compassion. When the city fell, there was no bloodbath. Saladin spared civilians, allowed Christians to leave freely, and treated his enemies with respect, an act unheard of in those brutal times. Even his rivals, like Richard the Lionheart, admired him. Saladin proved that true strength lies not just in battle, but in honor. William Wallace, the Guardian of Scotland, before Mel Gibson ever shouted freedom, on screen there was a real man who lived and died for it. William Wallace, the Scottish knight who became a symbol of resistance against English rule. After his wife was murdered by English soldiers, Wallace rose up in rebellion. At the Battle of Stirling Bridge, he led a small Scottish force to a shocking victory over the much larger English army. His tactics and ferocity made him both a hero and a nightmare for England. Though he was eventually captured and executed, Wallace's last words echoed across time. His fight for freedom became Scotland's national spirit. First Vlad the Impaler, the terror of Transylvania. He ruled through fear, and it worked. Vlad III of Wallachia, known as Vlad the Impaler, defended his land against the powerful Ottoman Empire. He used psychological warfare on a scale the world had never seen. When Sultan Mehmed II invaded, Vlad left 20,000 impaled enemy corpses along the road as a warning. The Sultan turned back. Though brutal, Vlad's methods saved his people and turned him into the most feared warrior in Eastern Europe. Centuries later, his legend inspired another, Count Dracula. But behind the myth was a man who fought for survival in the bloodiest way possible. Torta Miyamoto Musashi, the man who never lost. In the age of samurai, one name stood above all: Miyamoto Musashi. He fought his first duel at the age of 13 and never lost another. Over his lifetime, Musashi fought more than 60 duels, defeating every opponent with unmatched precision and strategy. But he was more than a swordsman. He was a philosopher, an artist, and the author of the Book of Five Rings, a masterpiece on the way of strategy and life. He developed the Niten-ichi Ryu style, fighting with two swords, and revolutionized samurai combat. Musashi ended his days not in battle, but in solitude, meditating on the art of life and death. He remains the ultimate symbol of the warrior spirit: discipline, mastery, and peace through strength. From Alexander's empire to Musashi's sword, these warriors shaped history through courage, vision, and an unbreakable will. They remind us that being a warrior isn't just about fighting. It's about rising every time the world says you can't. Which of these legends would you call the greatest? Subscribe for more real stories of history's most powerful legends, only on Real Story Hub.